Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Flower Files podcast. This is episode 2 with my favorite accountant here. This is Shannon.
Hello, how are you guys? It's good to be back. Thank you for having me. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're excited. Last time we were able to kind of sit next to each other, rub elbows, and, just kind of chat numbers and money and all of the things. Today, I'm in my home space, and you're in your office in your home space. So, and
yes.
you're dressed all fancy, and I'm dressed, in my usual farmer attire. So,
You look great though.
well, thank you. So do you. Last week, I feel like, or last episode, we really spent some time to focus on looking at the startup of a business. What are some of the key things? What are some of the key mistakes to kind of stay away from? And what some of those initial basic setups should be. Today, I want to dive a little deeper and look at how to not make some mistakes that I know are pretty common. So, Shannon, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so for those of you who were not with us last time, Shannon, will you give us just a tiny little snippet background of who you are again?
Absolutely. I've been doing taxes and financial everything for many years. I don't want to like date myself, but basically since
Was
I
two.
don't know, could add and multiply, divide, subtract. Third grade, I don't know. I love numbers. Numbers are my thing because they're definite. 2 plus 2 is always 4. So it's I love numbers. Um, I opened up a tax business about 7 years ago. This is my seventh year. Opened it at the beginning of 2020, and with a friend of mine. I have a history. The things I did before was like retirement planning. I also managed my husband's HVAC business, so I was in the office, doing accounts receivable, accounts payable, scheduling, taxes, the whole bit from start to finish and everything. So I think that the thing that makes me a little bit different from most accountants is that I know where you are as a business owner, because I've been there and I was there for a while, and I know how it feels to wake up in the morning and go, what do I do and who do I talk to? And I don't have anybody that understands. I can't talk to my friends because they don't own a business. I can't talk to this person because it's confidential information. I don't want to go to a competitor for obvious reasons. It's like, who can I talk to? And so having an accountant that understands and has been where you are just adds so much to the pie, because it's like I understand what's going on, and I've made those mistakes. I've stepped in it and said, how do I fix this? So it's not just textbook learning; it's actual experience and applied. And again, I love what I do. I love working with people. I love working with small businesses. I mean, I always get so excited working with you because it's things are happening and you're moving and you're growing and you've got it planned out. And we're planning. And I'm like, well, have you thought about this? And you're like 10 steps ahead. And I'm like, okay, she's got this going on. And it's exciting because it's like, we are doing this. And
Yeah.
it's just so much fun. It's so much fun to get to the goals.
I think
So,
that's one of the things I enjoy the most about working with you is the fact that you have been there and I can call you and be like, Shannon, I clicked this thing in QuickBooks or in this spreadsheet or whatever it is. And I'm like, I don't know how to undo it. I don't know what I did. I need you to fix it. And you're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I'm like, okay, I've stressed for 20 minutes. And one of the biggest things that I know you always say is, don't stress about it. We'll figure it out. And I'm like,
exactly.
so that is
Exactly. Because
so appreciated.
my thing is always, this is not brain surgery. No one's going to die.
No.
And it'll still be there in 10 minutes or 2 hours or 10 hours or 10 days. And the other thing is that that's what you have me for, is to do those things and to worry about it. So my rules are, don't lose sleep, don't get stressed out. Just call me, text me,
Yeah.
email me, and that's what I'm here for, is to fix
Yeah.
things. And I do audit representation, I do tax preparation, and I also do the CFO services, because small businesses need a CFO, but you can't hire someone full time because small businesses don't have the funds to do that normally.
Yeah.
Now, as you grow, maybe that changes and you want a full time person, but it kind of is the best of both worlds, because I can be that person for you for a fraction of the cost, but
Yeah.
yet you still get the same services and you still get the needs met and you still can grow. So,
And the same knowledge, because that's huge, because there's so many terms and logistics, I mean, let's face it, as I said in the last episode, I didn't start this business because I wanted to do accounting. I started this because
Yes.
I love flowers. And
Yes.
suddenly I was like, what do you mean I have to do this, this, and this with payroll? What does this mean about that, that, and that? And I don't understand. I don't, why do I have to pay? But I'm already doing it over. So there were a lot of ins and outs and little tiny things that I still learn to this day that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even realize I needed to
Yeah.
know about. So,
Yeah.
one of the things I feel like last time we touched on really briefly that I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more about. We talked about having really good notes and making sure, not just notes, but really good documentation and
Mm-hmm.
keeping track of everything. One of the things I wanted to chat with you a little bit about today is tax write-offs. I know that that's always
Mm-hmm.
a really big buzzword of like things you should write off today. But what can flower farmers, florists, and just creative business owners in general
Mm-hmm.
actually write off? And how do you do it correctly?
Yes. Generally, you can write off any expense that is tied to your business that you're using to produce income. Okay? I know that's a very broad brush and a very big statement. And if
It's like
there's,
repeat
other
it
accountants
all.
and
Got
tax
it.
people listening, they're going to be cringing because, I mean, there's some rules around it. You
Yeah.
can't just say, oh, I did this and it was for the business, let's write it off. But legitimate expenses, um, the travel that you take to go pick up the seeds that you get, the fertilizer that you get, the phone that you're using to call those people to order those things, that's all tax deductible. The key to it is keeping the receipt. And I'll give you a prime example that covers every business. It's cell phones. Everybody has a cell phone.
Hmm.
So it's kind of basic expectation that on the tax return there's going to be a telephone expense. I had a client that got audited that had telephone expense, and he had the credit card statements and the bank statements showing that he paid the amounts. He showed a current bill that tied to those amounts showing his cell phone, but because he didn't have the bill from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they disqualified the expense. Even though it's all legitimate and they know it, because he didn't have that piece of paper, they said, nope, you can't take that. And the thing about cell phone bills is that we always think we can go back to the provider and get it. Doesn't matter when. But most cell phone companies don't keep the invoices on their system for more than 16 months. And chances are, if you're filing a tax return and they're going to audit you, it's going to be after 16 months that you're going to get the notice and you're going to miss those deductions. So the key to everything is keep a copy of the receipt. Doesn't have to be paper. I'm not saying get you a file cabinet and start collecting paper, but have a system in place to where you take a picture of it and you upload it, and you save it, or you scan it and you keep it. You don't have to keep the paper, but you've got to have a copy of the receipt, whether it's electronic or paper, because then if the IRS comes back and wants it, you can send it to them via email or some upload portal that they have, or you can print it and send it to them that way. But either way, that works. A digital copy will satisfy them. Just
So
keep
the
copies.
fact that I have basically it's a little Tupperware contain. It's not even Tupperware. It's whatever's
Mm-hmm.
at the Walmart or Target. Those little plastic containers, and I take all my
Mm-hmm.
receipts and I put them in there for the year, and they're in a box and they get tucked on
Mm-hmm.
the shelf. Is there
Mm-hmm.
a better method that you would recommend for people?
Yes, yes, actually, I would. And here's another reason why is because a lot of those receipts, after time, they start fading and you can't read them.
Because
And one of
mine
the
are
things that,
pneumatic.
yeah, because it's kind of like thermal paper that it's printed on, and so as it warms up or stays in a car, I'm not sure about an attic. If it gets really hot in that attic,
Hmm.
it may basically get the ink off the paper, and you just have little pieces of white paper with nothing on it. So
Oh
that's a
my
problem.
God.
Yeah. Just FYI, go scan them. But yeah, the system is really taking the time to either take a picture and save it, to a online service that you have, save it to your phone and download it and keep it on your computer. Um, just have a system to where you're keeping that. Is what I personally do for my business. Is I've got an online portal for the company, of course. So on there, which it doesn't have to be online, it just has to be somewhere. Even if it's a thumb drive, you can get a little bitty thumb drive and put
Hmm.
it on that. It doesn't matter. But save it somewhere, back it up, stick the, do one per year, stick it in the safe, and that way if you ever need it, you're like, everything's right on here. And you can even copy it and give it to the IRS agent if you had to, if that happened. Um, but keep a digital copy, and then you don't have to keep the paper. But you've got to have a system. You've got to, and same thing with like miles and expenses for auto. That's a big thing too, because they come back and they disqualify mileage expenses, even though they know you're driving delivering flowers. They know you're driving picking up the fertilizer. They know you're driving doing all these things. But if you don't have a written log of where you went, when you went, who you saw, why you went, they'll go, nope, you can't take that. So it's all these hoops you have to jump through. And again, there's probably little apps on your phone that you can get to record it, to say, I'm going here, start recording, start tracking, and it'll track where you went, and then record the date and the time. So that's a way to do it too. And if
Is
you
there
really
a
want to get oh, go ahead.
is there a bookkeeping system that kind of I know when I first started and
Hmm.
it was the first 2 years, I did everything paper wise. And listen,
Hmm.
I'm from a different generation of somebody who's a little bit younger. So they may have a totally different method that is more technology based. But
Hmm.
is there I feel like there's different buckets, and forgive me, I'm a flower farmer, I deal in buckets.
Hmm. Perfect.
But
That's perfect.
there's buckets. Okay, so you have this bucket for mileage and travel. You
Hmm.
have a bucket for just kind of general expenses. You
Hmm.
have a bucket for day-to-day life, electric and
Hmm.
rent and
Hmm.
all of those things. If you are, and then invoicing. For a long time, I did handwritten invoices for folks because I wasn't big enough and I wasn't making enough sales to
Hmm.
warrant stepping into QuickBooks. And then
Hmm.
when I did step into QuickBooks, I was like, wow, this is a quagmire because it's asking me all of these questions and all of this stuff, and I
Yes.
hope I'm setting it up correctly. So
Yes. It can be a little overwhelming.
yeah,
There's all kinds of systems out there, and there's all kinds of programs and things that you can do, and you can even do it as simple as just having a spreadsheet with different columns for the expenses. Putting the date, where you went, and how much it was. It
okay.
keeps it simple. But if QuickBooks is a good one. It's online. It'll connect to your credit card. It'll connect to your bank. So it uploads the transactions for you. You still have to go back and reconcile it. And again, just like you said, you didn't get into business to do accounting. You got into business to grow flowers. So it's like, how much do you want to do? And that's where people like me come in, because we do the bookkeeping for you. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. Let us have access, and it's called accountant access, to where we can see things, but we can't change it. We can't send money to an account. We can't, pay our personal bills out of your account. We're not doing any of that. It's just that we can see the data that's in the account and be able to reconcile yours, make sure everything's posted, so that when we go back and look at the numbers and look at the income statement and look at, what's the bottom line, it's all right there. It's all recorded. Same thing with the assets and the liabilities. It's all right there,
And it's
and that's the
communicating
key.
correctly because realistically,
Hmm.
accounting is truly a separate language. And I
Yes.
don't know how else to explain it other than it is, with all of its terms and everything,
Hmm.
it's its own language. And you speak
Yes.
that
And
language.
some of the rules, I'll tell you, it doesn't make sense, because you got to think about this. They started this, or I want to say 1945 or something, or maybe even earlier. Maybe it was I don't know. It's been a while. They started this tax season for a while, and it was very simple. One page return, everybody did it, and you're done. Very, very simple. Well, then they come along and they say, well, we're going to add this law, we're going to add that law, we're going to add another law. So over the years, you've got this one little thing, and then there's all these little band-aids that go around it, and this band-aid doesn't match the other band-aid, so it's like, which one's really holding it together? And it doesn't make sense, because it's contradictory, and you've got to look at the most recent, and it's always changing. So that's why we're here, because don't let it make you feel like you're not smart, because it's stupid. It's like, it wasn't designed for
You're
us to
making it in my
understand.
head.
It's
In my head,
like,
I'm thinking if you're the band-aids, dude, I'm wrapping that stuff with duct tape. You
and
are
that's
my
what they've
duct tape.
done. They've literally taken this little thing and they put so much on it. It's like this gigantic, I don't know,
Rubber
huge
band ball
ball.
that just like whoop.
It
I
does, and
totally
it's like,
understand it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it just, the tax code is crazy, and it's not like, oh, well, that's common sense. It's not common sense. Some of it doesn't make any sense at all. For example, business meals. You have a client that comes in and you take them to dinner. because they're going to buy, all these flowers from you or something. It's going to be your biggest client. You take them to dinner. You buy their dinner. Let's say you spend $200. Well, the only thing you can deduct is 50% of that, and you've got to document everything. And there's other rules around it too. It's not just as simple as that. But it's just because you spend it on the business doesn't mean the IRS says, "Oh, that's an expense." They no, they just don't. They want to get their money, and they
Well, I'm
found
going to
ways
buy a
to do
boat
that.
then.
So,
I'll buy a boat, and it's, I have to take my clients out and entertain them. That's great.
well,
That's
sometimes
a
you
can
can
of
do
worms.
that.
But put that back in the can.
Yes. I mean, and again, if you can justify that it is a true business expense, you can do it. Now, can you justify having a boat for the entire year and you took your client out one time? Probably not. Like,
No.
no, that's not going to work. The IRS is going to
No.
come back on you. They're going to get taxes. Then they're going to look at me and go, and why didn't you ask the questions? And how can we let them do this?
Yeah. Why
And
did, why did this
so,
happen? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
If it's got to pass the smell test. If it doesn't smell right, if it doesn't look right, it shouldn't. You can't do it.
It's
So
not
you
right.
can't get crazy with it, but it's
It's
just
not
got to
right.
be legitimate. Yeah.
Okay.
And from a personal perspective, I'm not here to audit your books. I'm not going to audit your books. I'm here to do the accounting and tie everything together from the bank statements, the credit card statements, and everything that I'm given. I will ask the questions, and if it doesn't look right, then I'll dig deeper until we get to the bottom, until I feel comfortable. Because when I get to the point to where I'm losing sleep over your taxes, that's a problem. and
Yeah.
and I won't put anything on a return that I'm not 100% comfortable with and able to defend in the event you get audited. Because I don't want problems for you, and I don't want problems for me, and that's the way I do everything. So, it's definitely integrity, and it's definitely, oh no, you can't have three boats, and you can't have, and we're not taking six cars when. And I'll give you kind of an example, but I had a client that was in the medical field, and they really didn't work that much this one year, and yet they had expenses that were almost 20 times the income that they made, and I'm like, how did you spend that much money just making this much money? Like, this isn't gonna fly, and it's not. Prove it, because at that point I kind of become the auditor, and I go, show me the receipt,
Yeah.
show me how this expense tied to something that you earned. Like, where's the money that tied to this? And there's nothing there. Well, if there's no money tied to what you're doing, then you can't take it. And sometimes you can't directly tie those expenses to things. For example, marketing. You buy business cards. Well, business cards aren't necessarily tied to a specific client, but
Hmm.
it's a valid expense. But if you go to dinner and you take 100 people to dinner and you don't get any business out of that, are you really marketing? Or are you just taking people to dinner and writing it off?
Right.
So it's got to pass the smell test, but it's got to be legitimate. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It has to work. Yeah, that makes sense. That
but
makes sense.
also don't get to the point where you're afraid to take expenses. Take the valid expenses and lower the income so that your taxes are lower. I mean, it's it's a double-edged sword, but at the same time, make it work for you, and make it take what is rightfully yours. Don't leave money on the table, and don't give it to the
No,
IRS.
no, it's a balance. It's a seesaw. It's
Yeah,
definitely a
yeah.
seesaw.
I mean, and
So,
everybody has to pay their taxes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying cheat the government. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just
no,
saying, they're getting theirs, and you need to fairly get yours too. It needs to be honest and fair all the way around, and then you'll be good to go. So,
I think one of the biggest things that you've taught me, and if I could sum up your perspective in one quote that has always stuck with me, and I bet you don't even know this,
oh no.
is when you were like, up, you've got to pay these taxes and you have this and you have that. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? And you were like, you didn't do anything wrong. You did it right. You're making money. You have to pay.
hmm
And you
Yes.
were you were like, this is a good
Yes.
thing. And I was like,
hmm Yes.
okay, okay, let's back up and change the perspective, because
hmm
that was a really clarifying moment for me, that you helped me
hmm
understand that I wasn't doing something wrong, that I had built it to the place where, okay, okay, great, I have to pay some taxes because I did it
hmm
right. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So that
Yeah.
was absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. So I
Good.
want to shift just a tiny little bit. I want to talk about when you first start to make profit. So
hmm
those first dollars start coming in, and you're really trying to to figure out what to do with it. I want to, I feel like labor and overhead quietly destroy your profit margin, and you don't mean for
Mhm.
them to, but it's there and it's reality. And when you make that first dollar and you're like, wow, this is really great, and then you turn around, I want to make $2. Or if you're like,
Mhm.
I made $100, I want to make $200. How do you know if a business, this is like 10 questions in one, so I'm sorry.
It's
But
okay.
how do you know if a business is also scaling too quickly? Like, what are some
Mhm.
of the warning signs? So I guess to break this into a couple questions. First of all, you make a dollar. How do you balance labor and
Mhm.
profit and overhead out of that? And maybe we should
Okay.
talk about $100, because a dollar, we're going to go down to pennies and be like, you get a penny and you get a penny, and they don't make them anymore. So,
Yeah. Exactly. It's crazy, isn't it?
so yeah.
Um, I mean, that's a really good question, and that's something that is provided with the CFO services because we look at cash flow. We look at, yes, you want to grow, and yes, this is a great idea, but where are you going to get the cash to do it? Because the term cash is king is valid. If you don't have cash and you can't operate and you can't pay your vendors, pretty soon you're not going to be able to continue. So it's key to look at your cash flow to make sure you've got money coming in or you've got resources to pull from to be able to float the business until you've moved from $100 to 200 to 300 to 400. And as you're doing that, just like you mentioned, does it make sense? That's where the capacity planning comes in because we want to look at, do we have the right people? Do we have the people in the right positions? Because just like we talked about, you've got employees and some of their, one person has a great skill of marketing. One person has a great skill of assembling, the wedding flowers. One person has a great skill of just putting things together quickly or picking or just taking initiative and doing things that you would
Mhm.
normally have to do, and that takes that off your plate. So it's like, are they in the right positions? And if they're not, kind of move them. And if you have a gap somewhere, then you get either a new employee or you train the ones you have to fill that. And you look at that because if you go from, let's say you're making $100 net profit,
Mhm.
but then you go to $200, but you're doing three times the work. Does it make sense to do that? What happened? Or does it make sense to go from the 100 net profit to 400 even though you've doubled everything? So
Right.
you've got to look at if the expenses are going to as the expenses that are not tied directly to product but are tied to overhead. Like for instance, if you have to, in my business, it would be housing another employee. You got to have space. You got to have the computer. You got to have, all the things that they need, the internet, the whatever, the licenses for the programs, those kind of things. So if it doesn't scale properly, then does it make sense? And that's what we do is the capacity planning. We look at the cash flow. We put it all together. And I know we had talked about flowers, and when you were doing the salts and sugars, which I absolutely love, and every time I have a friend come over, I'm like, oh, you got to check this out. And they're just like, oh, this is really neat. It's great. I love it. I just love it. It just feels so
Thank you.
so
Thank you for the plug for the
fancy.
kettle pantry.
It's great. I mean, I've given it as gifts, and they're like, "This is really neat. Where did you
It's
get
so
this?" And I'm like,
bougie.
let me tell you about my flower girl in Maryland. But it's just, I love it. I love it. But when we were talking about that, when we were talking about growth and where do you want to be and goal setting, it's like, you know, I said, do you have enough land to plant all these flowers? And you said, oh yeah, I got plenty because you've already thought about it. But that's another thing to think of because if it takes, and I know this is a small, $100 is a very small number, but if it took you, let's say, and I know this is 100 acres to make $100, and you want to
Right.
get to $500, but you only have 200 acres, what's that extra 300 acres going to cost you? And do you
Right.
have enough to fund it? And then
That was
it,
something that we learned the hard way when I was like, okay, we're gonna do two weddings this weekend instead of one, and everybody's like, yay, more weddings, more profit. And I sat down at the end and was like, well, that didn't work. So we're gonna do three weddings. We're gonna do three. I felt like, what was that? The Count from Sesame Street. Three, everybody was like, yay, more weddings. And I would sit down and be like, didn't get, nope, nope, we're
this
gonna do
isn't
four. We're
working.
gonna do four weddings. Well, everything increased proportionately.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
profit still stayed the profit, and
Mhm.
the labor and the cost and the time and everything went up. So where I thought I was going to be like, wow, I went, wow. And
Yeah.
that's where you
Exactly.
and I have really, like literally dissected down to the flower stem. I mean,
Mhm.
I sit with my employees every week on Mondays, and now on our board that shows, hey, these are the flowers that we have. This is from us. This is what we've ordered in. These are the suggested prices. And trying to figure out, okay, that flower that comes in from the field that is a cut and come again, like zinnia, where you cut it and then 3 days later there's another one, and you cut it and 3 days later there's another one. There's more profit on that than there is a
Mhm.
sunflower type growing flower. Sunflowers are a whole different profit level because the seeds are so cheap. That's probably not the best example. But so what is that zinnia worth? Is it worth $1, $3, a
Mhm.
quarter, a penny? What is, how do you value that? And you have done a yeoman's job of helping me
Aw,
go back
thank you.
and dissect everything, because there's no formula that's the same.
Mhm.
I feel like it's not like a basic recipe where you could say, okay, the pie costs this much to make because
Mhm.
you've got the flour is this, no pun intended. The the sugar, the brown sugar, the filling, the all of the things cost this, and they're kind of set in price. This is like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm going to cut that zinnia, and I'm going to cut that zinnia, and now I have these zinnias, and I can look at what wholesalers are charging, but is that fair?
Mhm.
Sweet peas. We grow sweet peas. There are some years where we have sweet peas coming out our ears, and I don't know what to do with them. But sometimes people request sweet peas. They're out of season for us. So I just look at considering ordering them. Well, if they're being shipped in from Japan, that's my first like, that's not happening. But then
Mhm.
secondly, I look at the price and I'm like, oh my God. So how do you figure all of those places out? And again, you and I have sat down and you've helped
Mhm.
me dial it all the way back to this actual seed. Here's the seed.
Mhm.
Walk me through everything, every single step, everything that has to happen. And that's
Yeah.
that's what you've done. That's
Yeah, and that's one of the. It's a very good point because that's one of the things that you and I had talked about was okay. You buy a flower in, you know exactly what it costs per stem, the storage. But then if you're growing that flower, it's not just about here's the flower and this is what it's worth. I could go buy it, but it's like it took you time to take care of the ground, to make sure that you had all the right chemicals in the ground because of the soil type, which I know nothing about, which we figured out.
I'm so
Um,
proud you know that now.
I'm like, this is kind of cool. Another story for another day. But anyway, yes, I'm learning. I'm learning. I'm
You
learning a
are.
lot too. So, but then it's the seed, and then it's the planting, and it's the watering, and it's the okay, it's growing, and the flowers are coming up. But oh my gosh, snow's coming, or frost is coming. Now I've got the labor from all of the stuff that we just talked about, but now we've got extra labor to go cover it up,
Yep.
and then the next day uncover it, and
Yep.
then monitor it. I mean, it's like a little baby in the land just growing, and you've got to nurture it and take care of it, and there's a cost to that.
Yep.
There's a cost to that, and that is probably in your business, in my opinion, that's probably the hardest thing to price.
Yeah.
But there's value in that. So just saying, okay, here's the flower, and since I grew it, it really didn't cost me anything. It cost you a lot.
Yeah.
So
Because everybody's
right
like,
now,
well, you grew it. Shouldn't it be cheaper than the wholesaler? And I'm like, what?
mm-hmm,
I'm like,
exactly.
no,
No.
no, it's not cheaper.
Yep.
Sometimes my stuff is more expensive. On top of the fact that, for instance, tulips, you can get tulips for close to 60 cents from the wholesaler because it's being shipped in from Holland
Mm-hmm.
in these mass quantities, and they have itty bitty little heads compared to some of the fancy varieties that I grow where the bulb itself starts at 60 cents. Add the time, the
Mm-hmm.
labor, the fertilizer, the washing, the everything that goes into it. You take that 60 cents, and industry standard is multiplying it by three. That's not
Mm-hmm.
a 60-cent tulip, and that's not how it
Exactly.
works. And besides, my
Exactly.
tulip heads are bigger.
That's right. That's right. And they're made with lots of love, and you can't put a price on the love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the other things that you and I have discussed and trying to figure out how to how to quantify it is,
Mhm.
okay, there's going to be some loss. Not every seed is going to
Mhm.
germinate. Not every plant is going to
Mm-hmm.
grow. Some are going to get eaten, and there's going to be mistakes. I may have a bucket in my hands, turn to walk into the barn, and boop, I knock the heads off of 5 or 6 plants by mistake because I'm in a rush and I'm tired and I'm trying to do
Mm-hmm.
something. Or I'm driving into DC and we have these beautiful arrangements and we hit one hell of a pothole and the delphinium heads snap. Now what do? I got to
Oh,
replace them. Like legit true story.
wow.
There's only 3,
Yeah.
but still, I
Still.
mean, that's all part of it. And
Yeah.
yeah, trying to
Yeah.
figure it
Just
out
things to consider.
is crazy, 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 crazy. So, I have like 300 questions for you. So, one
I'll try.
of
I'll try to keep the answers short. How's
okay.
that?
So if I know you work with ag and you also work within the regular industry.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the top financial mistakes you commonly see in ag or floral businesses or just businesses in general? What are some of the mistakes you see
That's a
that you
very good
can talk
question.
about?
I guess the biggest mistakes of any small business owner, regardless of what industry you're in, is that just like you said, I got into this because I love flowers. The accounting's not my thing. So the biggest mistake is that they start out and they're making money and they're doing good and they're so excited and they're on fire and they've got all the energy and the accounting's there, but it's like this little bitty puppy growing in the corner and it just keeps getting bigger and barks a little louder and keeps getting bigger and barks a little louder until it's like this full grown, huge,
Malamute?
Dalmatian dog that's 3 feet tall and you're like, what do I do with it? To where it's such a pain and it feels like this gigantic monkey on your back. So to me, the biggest thing is that they don't start the accounting process, the record keeping process, the monitoring process sooner because is what's happening is they're making money and they're paying bills and they have a little left over, so it's all good. And they're making money and they're paying bills and they have a little more left over, so it's all good and they take a little bit more. Well, once you start taking the money out of the business for your personal needs, for whatever, because that's your job, that's what you're doing, and
Right.
you're entitled to that and you should get that. That's why you're in business. But it's easy to get to the point to where you're taking too much because you don't understand that you're not making that's not your net profit. It's part of the cash flow, but it's not your net profit because if you're putting everything on a credit card, pretty soon your credit card's going up but the cash isn't matching it, so you're in debt more and you're like, what happened? How come the bottom line is negative, or how come it's so low? Because you're not monitoring it. You don't know what your numbers are. That is the biggest thing. And you've got to know, as a small business owner, you have to understand that this flower costs $3. This, even though I grew it, just like you said about the tulips, but they're little heads, they're 60 cents, and mine are more expensive, but they're much, much beautiful and more pretty and all that good stuff. But you've got to also account for that when you make the bouquets, and you got to account for it when you put it together. So it's those kind of things that you don't really realize. And then I think the second thing is not, it kind of ties in where it's not necessarily not realizing it, but it's not really, I guess, grasping that, like we talked about the different arrangements, and
Mhm.
there's $50 arrangements and $75 arrangements and $100 arrangements, and if you don't know and you're not counting and you're not keeping up with how many stems am I putting in here and how much are they worth, did I just make $100 arrangement and give it away for 50?
Yeah.
Because that's human nature. You want to do bigger, you want to do pretty, you want to do extra, extra, extra. But are you charging for that? Are you getting paid for that? Are you giving all your profit away in that? And that's the biggest problem, is that they just don't know the numbers. They don't know their numbers.
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of where I come in and go, hey, let's look at this, and change some of the perspectives to where you're looking at a little bit different, but you're still growing flowers and having fun. And that's kind of the key, is that you don't want to get to the point to where you're the monkey on the back about the accounting is so much that you don't like it because it's become a job, and you don't want to go to work, but you can't quit because you're the boss.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can't go on vacation and you can't call in
No,
sick, and it's like,
no.
you get to where, I had another business owner I was working with, and they said, well, I just don't want to do that part. It's like, okay, then, the other person, the other owner can do that. Well, I don't want to do that part either. It's like, well, what do you want to do then? Because it's not your business. But you get to the point where you get so frustrated, you don't want to do it. And
Yeah.
that's not where you need to get. So take care of the accounting, take care of the numbers. Don't let it grow in the corner and become a gigantic elephant that takes over, because that makes it not fun.
Is
And
it better as a business? So if you're the business owner, is it
mhm,
better to pay yourself as an employee or pay yourself, I think they call it a draw
a
on the
draw.
business? Like what's better?
And that depends. And I know that's a terrible answer and people don't like that, but it depends. Because if you are a sole proprietor,
Hmm.
your taxes are going on what's called a Schedule C on your personal return. You don't take a paycheck. You don't get withholding. You don't pay Social Security like a normal employee would, but you get hit with that self employment tax at the end of the year when you file your tax return and you make a profit. If you
Gotcha.
have a loss, there's no self employment tax because you had a loss on the business. Um, if you have, let's say, a partnership, then you're a partner of the company and you get a draw, just like a self-employed sole proprietor does. If you have a business that's taxed as an S corp, you are an employee of that company because that S corp is like its own entity. It's like its
Gotcha.
own separate thing. It's got its EIN. It's a separate entity. You could literally sell your shares of stock, tomorrow to someone else. They pay you, and now it's their company, and it kind
Hmm.
of just goes. Whereas if you're a sole proprietor, if you've got the business, it's your business, and it's you. Same thing with a partnership. You can sell your portion of it, but the partnership is its own entity. So it depends on what the business, how it's set up. Personally, I like S corps. I like S corps because of the fact that you are an employee. Because of the fact that when COVID came along and people had to stay home,
Hmm.
the small business owners who were self-employed, Schedule C's, and some partnerships didn't get paid because they didn't have a paycheck, because they're not paying state unemployment and federal unemployment. So they're not getting paid. But
Gotcha.
if you're a W 2 employee through an S corporation, you're an employee. You're entitled to unemployment. You're entitled to all the things that your employees are entitled to. You're paying for those things, but again, it's not significant compared to the benefits that you're going to get if you need it.
Gotcha.
So the answer is it depends. Personally, I like the S corps because you're an employee and you've got federal withholding going in as you go. So at the end of the year, you don't get hit with this big amount, or you're not having to make estimated tax payments throughout the year.
Perfect.
So
Perfect. 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 Okay. So we have like probably 2 minutes left.
okay.
So you ready for just a couple rapid fire questions?
Let's go.
Okay. All right, ready?
Ready?
What's your favorite flower?
Favorite flower? Peony. Did I say that right?
You did. Well, people say peony, they say peony. I hear it all kinds of different ways.
Peony.
But I knew what
Oh,
it
that's
was. Okay. Favorite reason to get flowers?
just because.
Hmm.
Just
Interesting.
because. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite flower story?
Favorite flower story?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yes. I got 2 dozen roses for Valentine's Day this year from my boyfriend, which was great. But I
Yeah.
don't. I'm not. I'm not a flower person, and I love flowers, but I can't arrange them very well. So they came in, and I'm like trying to cut them and trying to arrange them, and I was like, it just looks terrible. But they're so pretty. So it's like you put them in a little vase and bunch them up, and it just looks good anyway. So yeah,
Yep.
I'm just. But I love flowers. I love flowers.
Okay.
And one more quick story. My grandmother, when she was alive, she was my favorite person on the planet, and she always said, "If you're not gonna buy me flowers now, then certainly don't buy them when I'm gone." I'm like,
Oh,
okay, so that's one of the things that I really truly try to live by is like if there's a reason to send somebody flowers, send them flowers because it brightens their day. They'll always remember it. And again, if you're let them enjoy it. Why would you do it later when they're gone and they can't even see them? Like, come
yeah.
on, send it now.
Yeah.
And
I've
it's
heard
just a good
that
thing.
men normally get flowers twice in their life. Once, usually if they're getting married, and
Hmm.
then when they're buried.
When they're passing anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Wow.
oh, I was
That's
like, oh,
sad.
yuck. I don't like that.
Yeah. No, they need some too. They like them too.
Exactly. Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So, all right. Well, I have always lists of questions for you, but if people want to have their own list of questions to ask you and
Hmm.
work with you, what is the best way for them to reach you?
They can call me directly at 410-443-2424.
Awesome.
They can find me online at thetaxchick.pro,
Hmm.
or they can email me at Shannon at thetaxchick.pro. So I would love to hear from you
Socials,
guys and help you
really,
out.
where do we find you on socials?
Oh, Facebook,
Yeah.
detechchick.pro.
Okay.
I'm trying to get an Instagram account. I'm working on it. I'm not technology savvy with all that stuff, but I'm working on it and I'm learning, so I'm getting there.
Good.
I'm growing up.
Let me know how that goes because it's overrated from what I hear.
Yeah, it's like that whole old dog new trick thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah, there's some things where I'm just like, I understand this, this, and this, and then I get to a certain point
Mm,
and I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, can I have somebody who's 20, please? Can you
yes,
fix this?
yes,
I broke it again.
exactly.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
my incredible resource, my
Aw,
sounding board. I know it's not just me who has that sentiment. I know there are so many businesses and so many people that you have helped. And it's funny when I'm connected with people that work with you. I'm not going to call them out, but there's a couple folks who are just like, I'm like, yeah, I work with Shannon. And they're like, oh, Shannon.
aw, thank you. I love that.
So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
taking the time. I know your schedule is crazy, for sharing your wisdom with us and for other folks here. And
Well, you're very welcome. It's been an honor. So,
will definitely
I
be
have one more.
talking soon.
I
Yeah.
have one question for you though. What's your
Oh,
favorite flower?
all of them.
All of them.
I figure that's the safe answer. That honestly, all kidding aside, there are different flowers in each season that I love. But if I had to pick
Hmm.
one thing that I personally adore, it's not even a flower. I am a eucalyptus. Like, give me the eucalyptus.
Ah,
I love,
wow.
and people know if I'm stressed, if I'm tired, if I just need space, I'll be like, I'm out in the eucalyptus. And they're like, oh, you know what that means?
That's really neat. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, yeah, the
Nice.
flower farmer who loves eucalyptus.
Nice. Love it. I
But,
love
all
that.
right, my
That's
friend,
great.
I will talk to you
Okay.
soon.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.